Growing up and living close to the Lake Erie, you naturally gravitate toward the water. I've spent a lot of time on Lake Erie fishing for walleye and steelhead, swimming the local beaches, water skiing, and kayaking. But I've only seen a tiny sliver of the Great Lakes. This trip was going to change all of that. It would take us to 2 national lakeshores, a national park, a provincial park, and a national bird sanctuary, only after traveling more than 1,500 miles. When my friend Bob pitched his plan to swim and paddle all of the 5 Great Lakes, I was skeptical, but was hooked. Bob's friend Joe also took the bait. Bob carefully planned each location so that we would swim and paddle at culturally or ecologically significant areas. The catch was he wanted to do it all in 5 days. Our trip started in Bob's driveway in a suburb of Buffalo, New York. We packed our gear, secured our kayaks, and my wife dressed up our car for the road. We had sunshine and high hopes as we crossed the border into Canada. Our first lake was Ontario at Bluffer's Beach in Scarborough, Ontario, just east of Toronto. As we arrived, we could not believe we were minutes from the largest metropolitan city in Canada. Bluffer's Beach is part of Scarborough Bluffs, a stretch of about 15 kilometers, that's 9.3 miles for us in the US, and reach as high as 90 meters or 300 feet. After telling the lifeguard our plans and having a couple locals snap our picture, we launched into our first lake. From the water, we could really appreciate how special the bluffs were, shielding us from the hustle and bustle of nearby Toronto. The only commotion was the hundreds of double-crested cormorants flying in line and above. Bob and Joe are seasoned swimmers and have a lot of experience in open water. Although I'm a proficient swimmer, most of my swimming is in pools or in rivers after getting wet from whitewater. A 1-mile swim tethered to a kayak was going to be a challenge for me. The other guys felt at home and were swimming like dolphins. I was happy to be making progress to the shore, keeping my head above the water. And like that, our first lake was complete. Nice job, guys.
Lake Ontario, number one.
Yeah, number 1.
1 out of 5.
1 out of 5. What's up next?
On our way to Southamton and Lake Huron.
The trip was not very interesting, with farm field after farm field, until the weather took a turn for the worst. We encountered a thunderstorm and then were alerted of a tornado en route. The storm slowed us down a bit, but we were still able to enjoy a great dinner at the Smoky Cactus, unanimously voted the best meal of the trip. We enjoyed nachos, tacos, burritos, beer, and tequila, while talking sports with our ever-accommodating waiter, Sam. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers. Na zdrowie.
We hit the sack early. We had a lot more paddling and swimming to do in the morning. Day 2 began with a hotel breakfast before heading to Chantry Beach near Jerry's Fast Food, a launch site recommended by Sam the night before. We scoped out the beach before unloading our kayaks and launching. Chantry Island is a federally protected migratory bird sanctuary and is designated an important bird area. As we paddled, the island and lighthouse came into focus. We stopped and chatted with a local from the Marine Heritage Society before circumnavigating the island. We marveled at the number of gulls and cormorants. The shoals around the island provided some excitement. Bob and Joe even got a little bit of surf on some of the waves. After we finished our circle of the island, Bob did his customary dive, and we were swimming back to shore. This was going to be a challenging swim for me. Yesterday, swimming parallel to the shore provided me some mental protection. Today's swim was much longer and more exposed. Bob and Joe, like yesterday, swam around effortlessly.
Lake Joey! Baby! Huron! Ontario number 1! Lake Huron, number 2.
Huron love, baby.
Loving it out here.
I eventually made it to shore with Bob and Joe cheering me on.
How do you feel, Mike?
I've ever done.
You look good.
The mile swim from the island was definitely my longest and most challenging swim of the trip. Gentlemen, 2 out of 5 done.
Well done.
Ontario, Huron.
Congratulations.
Beautiful stuff.
So how was that water?
Perfect. Surprisingly warm. Beautiful.
Incredible paddle.
Aqua green.
Awesome paddle. I'm glad we went around the island.
So Chantry Lighthouse and Chantry Island, we went around the shoals, bumped through. We had a little wavy, we had a little ride on there. You'll probably get that on the video.
Little surf.
Yeah, there was a little
on there.
surf.
Yeah.
Good long swim in from the island. Perfect.
Yeah, that was
The
good.
water,
job, guys.
the water temperature couldn't have been any better.
Yeah,
It was
this is a
spectacular.
Beautiful area.
Yeah, Southamton.
Spectacular.
Yeah, keep it a secret though.
Yeah. Next up, Lion's Head.
For a hike?
On the
Long
Georgian Bay, right? The
Yep.
overlook of the Georgian Bay and Tobermory, and a ride on a ferry.
Then we take the ferry, and tomorrow we head to Superior.
We packed the car and checked off Lake Huron. After a quick stop at Foodland for some fresh food, we hit the road heading to Lion's Head Provincial Park. Since not all grocery stores in Canada sell beer, we stopped at the LCBO on the way for some local craft brews. Switching to hiking boots was a welcome treat for me. The Lion's Head Lookout is on the Bruce Trail and is a rocky 200-foot overlook of Georgian Bay. This was a very interesting hike with unique geological features en route to the overlook. The first we encountered was the Giant's Cauldron pothole, formed by glacial streams swirling as they cascaded. Then we came across the Lion's Head pothole, a much more impressive formation that you can walk in and even see from above. We continued down the trail until we reached our first overlook of Georgian Bay. From there, the views of the turquoise water and sheer cliffs became more and more impressive as we progressed to the Lion's Head Lookout. Lion's Head by far provided the best views of Georgian Bay. Wow. All right, boys. Another amazing adventure. Lion's Head was by far more than what I expected.
Yes.
The drop off.
Spectacular.
I was not
Over
expecting.
Georgian Bay.
I was not expecting cliffs and overlooks and the continuous overlooks, and just Lion's Head was amazing. The water below that I mean, it looked like
Deep blue.
it looked
deep
like
blue.
Caribbean sand beaches down there. It was one of the highlights of this trip so far for me.
Paddle, a swim, and now a hike.
And now
And now the ferry.
we hop on a ferry, which should be pretty interesting. I've never been on a ferry before. It'll be my first time.
Alrighty.
We had a short drive to Tobermory, where we would travel to South Baymouth via a ferry named the MS Chi Cheemaun, also known as the Big Canoe. It holds 140 cars. We got in the queue to board the boat and had about 30 minutes to grab a bite to eat. I stopped at a local coffee shop called Tobermory Coffee Company. I was greeted by the owners, and they explained what a Montreal bagel was.
It's the density and how they prepare it. So they actually boil it in honey water first, and then it's baked in an open fire oven.
The bagel and coffee were amazing. However, my enjoyment was cut short. So we got an issue. Supposedly they can't unload the ferry on the other side, so they're coming back here and unloading, which means we can't get on the ferry, nor can all of these other people get on the ferry. And there's probably a bunch of people that are on the ferry right now that want to go. Plus, it's been completely booked up, and we don't have a place to stay. So we've got an issue. I don't know what we're gonna do.
So we're just gonna break this up however we want. I mean, we were gonna have a 6-hour drive tomorrow. So basically, and we were gonna have 3 hours tonight. So basically, instead of 9 hours with a ferry and a drive, we're gonna clip off more time tonight and leave us maybe about the same time tomorrow.
Okay, so where are we going through?
We're gonna go through Sarnia.
So we're going through Detroit now?
It's a little, I think it's a little north of Detroit, but yeah, we'll end up in like Detroit proper, kind of cutting through.
Okay. All right, I get the time, and I don't know if there's any other way to do it other than the other way, which was 8.5 hours. So why are we adding the couple hours?
8.5 hours only got us to Sault Ste. Marie.
Oh, 10 hours gets us to Pictured Rocks.
I think 12 hours gets us maybe to Pictured Rocks.
From Sault.
Yeah, I couldn't even get it to calculate that way.
Oh, but your 10 hours was to Pictured Rocks.
My 10 hours is to Pictured Rocks.
Okay. Well, it's beautiful sunshine at our Plan B hotel right next to this truck plaza. It was someplace to sleep. It was a Super 8, wasn't too bad. Had a breakfast. The sun is out. Big difference from the thunderstorm that we drove through yesterday to get here. But we're making the best of it. Missing the ferry was a disappointment, but it actually is going to work out to be better because now we're a little bit closer to Pictured Rocks. So we only got a couple hours to get there, and we're going to be there sooner than we would have had we taken the ferry, stayed at South Weymouth, and then driven in the morning. So all in all, not a huge deal that we missed the ferry. A little disappointed. I kind of wanted to see what that looked like with 140 cars on it, but we're here. We're just north of Detroit on our way to Pictured Rocks. Excited. We're probably going to maybe try to do a paddle and swim today, given the beautiful weather. I think it's supposed to be like 85 today, 90 tomorrow. So we're gonna hit it just right, and looking forward to seeing the seashore and the Pictured Rocks and the different formations. It's exhausting though. I'm ready for a nap already, although we only had a few hours of sleep after getting in late. Off to Pictured Rocks. The highlight of the drive to Munising from this direction was the Mackinac Bridge, which we'll now have to travel over twice. This also meant we would need to drive the scenic stretch of Route 28, dubbed the most boring road in the state, twice. Now that we are in Munising 3 hours sooner than expected, we went to Sandpoint Beach. It turned out to be the perfect location to relax for a bit before our paddle and swim. After swimming, we relaxed on the beach, devising our plan to kayak across to Grand Island, to the lighthouse, and where the ice caves form in winter. The paddle was uneventful, with some of the largest ships slowing down as they passed. The lighthouse and ice cave cliffs were very cool to see from the water. A nice prelude to the Pictured Rocks the next day. We checked off Lake Superior and headed to our hotel. We enjoyed a few beers at the Barge Inn and some wood-fired pizzas from the Cooking Cranberry while listening to a local band before calling it a night. Day 4, a bonus day, was what I've been waiting for. Really, the whole reason I wanted to go on this trip. Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore has been on my bucket list for several years. Our first stop was Miners Castle Overlook. We wanted to see the amazing formations and survey the lake and possible launch sites at Miners Beach. Although it was an overcast day, the forecast was favorable. Seeing the pictured rocks from the water was incredible. We paddled into coves where groundwater was forced out of the rocks, making a refreshing waterfall. The cliffs became more and more amazing as we paddled past Bridal Veil Falls. We turned the corner and were introduced to the Twin Sisters, with striped deposits to their left. And of course, we had to paddle through the Kissing Rock Passage. We paddled around another point where we could see Mosquito Beach in the distance. Satisfied, we turned around and noticed a layer of pebbles, likely deposited by an ancient river. On the return trip, and highlight of the day was taking a swim in the chilly waters in one of the coves. We think it was called the Honey Pot. The water was clear and had an emerald color. The stones inside were polished to perfection. Needless to say, the water could not have been more than 60 degrees, but it was well worth it. We made it back safely to Miners Beach and made a quick stop at Miners Falls on the way out of the park. We all knew we only scratched the surface of this magnificent place and vowed to return soon to paddle the entire lakeshore. Now back to the car for lake number 4, Lake Michigan, but not before driving the boring Seney section and passing over Mackinac Bridge again. We arrived in Glen Arbor, Michigan, with plenty of time to hit a locally favorite spot, Art's Tavern, and visit the Lake Street Beach to skip some rocks. Joe couldn't resist a quick swim. The weather was not on our side for Lake Michigan. There were heavy storms in the area. We were hopeful for a clearing to get our activities in. We arrived at the Glen Haven Historic Village, which was home to the Sleeping Bear Point Coast Guard Station Maritime Museum. It is also a protected area for piping plover. The skies were gloomy when we launched. Luckily, we were protected by a bay lending to glassy lake conditions. We were not expecting the same as we rounded Sleeping Bear Point, but we really wanted to see the dunes from the water. We were able to enjoy some of the dunes before heavy fogs rolled in. We were able to appreciate the scale of the dunes by seeing some hikers on the trail around the point. With the changing weather conditions, we decided to head back to the bay for our swim. We enjoyed our swim in and took some hero shots before the weather started approaching. By the time we got back to our car, it was raining steadily. We looked at the forecast and saw there might be a clearing in about an hour, so we decided to take the Pierce Stocking Scenic Drive. We stopped at a few of the overlooks and could see some of the dunes through the fog. We learned about the dune cycle and then stopped at overlook number 9, which was recommended by the National Parks worker at the gatehouse. It is the biggest dune on the drive, and you start at the top. Our luck prevailed, and the weather broke when we arrived at this overlook. It was truly spectacular. You couldn't even see the bottom of the dune without traveling 100 feet down first. However, if you choose to travel to the bottom of the dune and can't make it back up, there's a hefty fine. Despite this warning, there were several people climbing up from the bottom. I left Bob and Joe on the dune to get some shots from the wood observation deck at the top of the dune. By the time I was at the observation deck, Bob was halfway down the dune. I guess we're climbing it. I hustled to catch up. There was a weird feeling descending such a steep slope so quickly and softly. I passed the guys to try to get some shots at the bottom to get a ground level perspective of this enormous dune. So against our better judgment, Bob came all the way down the dune. Now we gotta go way back up there. They say it's about 450 feet. Takes about 15 minutes.
2 or 3 days we'll be at the top.
Maybe 25 for me.
This was worth it though.
Worth it on the way down. We'll see how we feel.
It'll be all right.
We got this.
After we get out.
10 minutes, we're up.
We all made it up successfully. No rescues needed. As we walked back to the car, the skies opened up and began to pour. After a quick stop at M22, a local store, we hit the road, heading back into Canada for our final lake, Lake Erie. Once again, the weather was not in our favor. The forecast was for scattered thunderstorms and 15-mile-an-hour winds with gusts up to 20 miles an hour. Living on Lake Erie, we knew that meant trouble for our final lake. We were thinking that if we could paddle the east side of the 5-mile point, we might be protected from the winds and waves. The parks employee at the gate, though she thought we were crazy, gave us great advice on how we could paddle in. There was a marsh that started at a channel and opened up into a pond adjacent to the lake. She thought this might be our best bet given the conditions. Our minds were made up to finish this challenge, and this might be our only option. Our fingers were crossed that we'd be able to at least get our swim in. The paddle through the channel was magnificent. We saw waterfowl, swans, and an eagle, along with several unique marsh plants. As we paddled through Lake Pond, the skies opened up and welcomed us to Lake Erie. To our delight, the narrow East Beach unveiled a near-perfect lake. We could not believe the difference. We decided to do a short paddle up the point before jumping in for our final swim. Okay, fellas, how's it feel? Final lake, last paddle, final swim.
We've got some.
Bob did his customary kayak dive and quickly found the water to be very cold. Of course, this did not deter Joe and I. We were on the doorstep of completing this challenge. Although everyone was stoked to have completed the 5 Great Lakes in 5 days challenge, our adventure was not done. We hopped on the shuttle to explore Pelee Point, the southernmost tip of mainland Canada. The observation deck was closed, but that did not take away from the walk to the point. We could see Pelee Island in the distance. As we walked further and further out on the point, the gravel bar got narrower and narrower. The waves were crashing on both sides and meeting in the middle. And then you hit the end. You feel as if you are standing in the middle of the lake. The angry sea was applauding our accomplishment by crashing together. We took one more picture to remember our travels together before packing up our kayaks for the last time. I wanted to end this video on something sentimental about old friends and new friends. But the more I thought about it, this adventure was about saying yes. When your friend comes to you with a harebrained idea, say yes. Keep your body physically and mentally fit to say yes. Keep your finances fit to say yes. And most importantly, keep your partner and family happy so that you can say yes. The answer to an adventure should always be yes.